Now, what about the things like a deep fake? We talked about this earlier with you. If bad actors get involved in criminal activity, you give us some examples of what can happen with, deep fake.
Well, deepfake is the generation of video that simulate or a real person that you know. It's actually using the data you feed it to the program, and then whatever transcript you give that person or that avatar or that image or video, it's going to start reading that and start communicating with you as if it's a real thing. And there are really a lot of cases where the tool, which is the AI, can be used by bad actors and good actors, bad people and good people. It's like the car. You can use it for, delivering patients to the hospital. People can use it to commit a crime and a runaway car. So it's a tool. So the bad actors, they found ways, which is make it so easy for them to get into, cybersecurity crimes and to act, in a way which is we never heard about it. And I'll give you some examples. There was a famous case in Hong Kong where this banker, he thought he is in a Zoom meeting with the personnel or officers from his company. Is basically they are created by deepfake, and they convince him to transfer $25 million to outside the bank. And the only thing for him to figure out that this is wrong, because he received a text message from the real person, and he was confused about it. How can he be in front of me and I receive a text message from you? Another one is Elon Musk. Somebody created a deepfake of Elon Musk and convinced this poor lady in South Korea to give him $50,000. The richest person in the world asking for $50,000. It makes no sense, but this is how convincing is that. Another story about it, which is really hitting home here, is the robocall that created by AI in the voice of the President Biden in New Hampshire, where people start receiving calls saying, don't go and vote. I mean, it's not going to change anything. You're going to win. So some people actually thought that this is the president telling them to stay. So the FCC banned these kind of robocalls, that it is fake one, fabricated one. And this shows you that where's the truth and where is the fake. And now with the AI, there is no line between them. You can be going between them very easily.
Now, no one really owns this technology, right? So bad actors can use it for bad things, if it's North Korea or China or whoever. We'll talk later about regulation. But do you have any examples where you actually see this, taking place, that some bad actors used AI in a way that created damage?
It depends on the level that the country going to use and what they're going to use it for. For one of the things that the United States is trying to do is to get the feedback from the private sector, from the companies that created the generative AI. I believe that there is no way for us to have our head wrap around the whole case of the generative AI and the impact, whether it is at the national level or the international level, without having three parties getting together and sitting to the same table and talking, which is the government is one, the private sector, which is those tech companies, and also the civil rights organizations. That will be the voice of the people saying we're concerned about privacy, we're concerned about security, we're concerned about our safety.
Civil rights, you said.
Civil rights organizations. Yeah. And that's the case, because if you leave it for the companies, what you are technically trying to tell them to make less money, because they want them to be careful about their product. They're not going to do that. There's billions of dollars in that market. The government, they don't understand it that much. They don't have the people who are really up to that level to understand what is the implication. They're very slow in regulations and in the laws. So, and the civil right is very concerned about this. So once you bring them together, now we are talking about three parties talking to each other. Now, just to give you an idea about Europe is ahead of many of those initiatives. They have something called AI Act, and the AI Act is very specifically, and it's very simple. It has 4 elements, and the elements, that one of them is we have to label the AI tools. For example, this one is dangerous. This one is acceptable. This one is okay. All they have like the color code we have for the warning. And then it's an opt-in, not an opt-out, which means if I'm using your data, I have to let you know that I'm using your data in the training here. The other thing is that in the communication between the companies about anything wrong with their product that will be needed in this case. So things like this, when it comes to the EU, the European Union, taking action in this by themselves and say we have to do something about it, it's very important to make sure that the AI is safe.
Probably it was a few months ago. I was in San Francisco, Chinatown, and there was a Waymo self-driving car that gets stuck right turning somewhere in Chinatown. And there's a lot of pedestrians, so it didn't know what to do. It was just waiting there for a long time. I actually have a video on my Twitter. You can see it on February 9th, how the car is sitting there and cars are honking, right? And then just 2 weeks later, I did a business trip to Boise, Idaho, and then from the airport to the Airbnb, we had a driver, a Uber driver, who I chatted quite a bit during the trip. He was from Ethiopia. He was telling me how he moved to Boise and his experience and all these things, right? So if they hadn't happened that close, I wouldn't have paid attention. But they were so close to each other, and I realized how impersonal and bothersome the first one is, and how interesting the second experience was, right? So the question is what's the ultimate goal for getting the self-driving cars and all of this? It's going to reduce the number of jobs, and it's going to, even if they work perfect, it will still have some issues. So what's the goal, you think?
The future is driverless vehicles. There is no question about it. Yes, of course, we're going to lose this experience of interacting with human and talking to human while you're driving, which is they tell you their story, you tell them their story. It's an enjoyable, part. The key thing about driverless cars is the benefits. It's coming from the fact that people are going to feel safe because you are not with another human. It's going to take you from point A to point B, and you're done with that. The problem with it now, it's still not ready for prime time. There is a lot of things going on with the software and with the hardware available. The Waymo have 40 cameras, just looking around and making sure and processing the data. But to understand how cars like this will act, they run through scenarios. And definitely there will be a scenario where they never thought about it, which is a human being, they act, in different thousands of ways. So they get to that situation where they take the safest way, which is if you are not sure, stop. That will be, the command to the car saying, if you're not sure about anything, just stop. Human will take care of it. Or we'll send you somebody, instead of acting or driving or going, forward without knowing what's going on. The San Francisco is a very tough city when it comes to testing driverless cars. Cities like Miami, Phoenix, Austin, and I know all those cities, they're flat. So driving there will be much easier because you have a very specific route and they can just go back and forth without any issues. San Francisco is different. You're talking about 7 hills that you have to go. A lot of people there. Traffic is really challenging for this. The Waymo, Alphabet or Google is pushing for this, and they managed to regain the permit so they can drive again in, or the permission to drive again in San Francisco. They even extend it to the peninsula so they can drive over the 101, so it can go all the way to Sunnyvale. Even though there's some resistance from the locals, they say, well, we're not safe. If the car is driving 20 miles, 35 miles, it's okay, but if it's driving 65 miles an hour, that's going to be really tough to make any decisions. My concern is the last thing I want to see, the last thing I want the companies to do is to use our highways as their tracks to test their cars. This is something that's unacceptable, in this case. And until they sharpen that software, getting that feedback, have a better hardware to done that, the limitation of the drive, the time, and the delivery is needed. Here's another thing about it. Kids, you're working, so you go to work, and then one of those driverless cars can take the kids to school without you worrying about they're going with strangers in those cars. Students who go to prom or go to parties, in the high school, you can have just driverless car, and that's going to take them without somebody's driving the car, and those, some of them will be in a bad situation. It's going to help. It's going to solve some of the issues where give people some kind of assistance and help at this sense. And it's an option. A lot of people, like you're going to say, okay, I prefer to have a human being that I can talk to him or her. And some people, they say, I want to try the driverless car. I tried one of them, and, I don't want to talk to anybody, for example. So I have the iPod in front of me. I can run the music I want and can do all these things. And I'm fine with that, and because I'm doing something while I'm doing this. So it's an option. It's not the only option. It's one of the options that's going to be available.
We talked earlier about an experiment done by the Air Force with AI. Please tell us about it.
They have a simulation about a drone that's run by AI, and there's a lot of the research and application of AI with the Department of Defense, because this is really giving them an upper hand in so many levels. They can have fighters without pilots, which save lives. So this drone was programmed to go after the enemies. And to understand how significant is this, I don't have to tell the drone about who's my enemy. I have to program it on a certain data that will define the enemy for me. And they can go and do the task and they're done with it. But they're trying to experiment with this. So they have this simulation where there's an officer that's tracking the drone to go to the target. In the middle of the flight, the officer decided to abort the mission by saying, abort, abort, you're done. The drone refused to do that and went ahead and hit the target and then came back and hit the tower where is the officer in the simulation. And when they try to audit and to look at what's the reason, the answer from the drone is, or the AI on the drone, the human stood in my way to finish my mission. We don't want to do that, you know. We don't want it to go to the level where it starts thinking by itself. And that is the area of the super AI, when the AI looks at the human as an obstacle for them. I'll give you another example about this one. There was an experiment by Google, and they teach the AI five languages. And it was really successful, and they talk about it, you know, in the media. But later on, they found that the AI actually learned a sixth language, which was not planned. So they tried to ask people, did you ask the AIs? Say, no, we didn't ask the AI. So they found out that the AI found this language is fascinating and learn it on their own. And they say, okay, I love this language. So now instead, why you want to make that decision? Because now you train me on 5. Well, I want to learn more. I want to see what is the sixth language I can learn. This is the risk that we see, and those are the flashlights or the flash points we see it about the super AI, when they start making decisions without going back to us. The fear here is, and this is actually mentioned in so many of the hearing in the Congress, that the AI will create its own AI. The human is not involved in that cycle. That is the fear. That is the beginning of the super AI.